All right, guys. Hello and welcome to the Guest Life Podcast, episode 41. We've got a very special guest today. We're going to be talking about everything business, everything kitchen, and good eats in the city of Hamilton. Thank you, Kristy, for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Just before we start, guys, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, we wouldn't be here without the listeners, but again, with the guests that are coming in, and I'll play on words, but honestly, episode 41, just so grateful that everybody takes the time to tune in, people getting involved, and then obviously this incredible city for being a place that creates opportunity for talent like Kristy here. So we've got Kristy Barber. She's the owner and operator of Avondale Restaurant Equipment, located downtown Hamilton. If you've eaten in Hamilton, you've probably been a customer of hers somehow. Putting together restaurants. I've been very fortunate to work with her. Many different fit outs. Her and her team provide commercial kitchen, including design services, appraisal, fabrication, and installation. We've used her in our shop. I've used her at my house, a little bit everywhere. So thanks so much, Kristy, for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So the kitchen equipment space, I don't know if I have ever been more involved in it than my later years as a plumber.
There's a lot to it. There really is. Yeah. So
tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Well, Avondale is actually a sister company to Barber's. So Barber's Restaurant Equipment Repair started in 1970 with my dad. And in 2008, he decided that maybe service wasn't really where he wanted to be. So he'd always sold used restaurant equipment. So that was just part of the nature of it. And so we thought, you know what? I've got I've got capable guys here at Barber's. He's like, I'm going to try something different. So we bought a warehouse, which is where we operate on Avondale Street. That's the name. Yeah. And so we started mostly with used equipment. And at the same time that this was happening, I was moving back from Vancouver. Okay. And I called him up and said, Dad, you got a job for me? And he said, actually, I do. So he was launching Avondale at the time. And for the most part, it was all used equipment. We were refitting, refurbishing, bringing in used stuff, and then reselling it.
And that's a big market, right?
It is. And at the time, it was a lot of dealers doing this. Okay. So that has shifted. Mostly now it's the auctions and stuff like that. It used to be all dealers and now it is more end users now.
Really?
Yeah. And that's shifted over the last 10 years. We were doing mostly, I would say 95% used at the time, maybe 5% new. And now we're completely shifted the other way.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think, like I say, the end users will go to the auctions, buy kind of as is, which is, we've helped a few people get out of situations. Yeah. But, and also too, it's not necessarily what... It's the same thing with anything right now, cars included. They don't make them like they used to. Yeah. And so unfortunately, refurbishing something that was 20 years old is a little different than refurbishing something that's 8 or 10 years old. Yeah. And
water causes damage.
And water and heat together. So it's but no, now we're doing about 98% new equipment. Wow. And we've done everything. Like we used to mostly focus on cooking equipment. Okay. But now we do everything. We do everything from hoods down to forks and knives.
Wow.
And cooking equipment, refrigeration, everything, dishwashers, everything in between.
And so we passed over a little bit. So your journey came in, Vancouver ready. You wanted to go. Tell us about that. How did Kristy Barber make her staple? What position did you do when you started in Avondale?
I was the director of marketing.
Okay. Here we are. Yes, that's why before we were talking about Gary Vee, you knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah. So that was the title. My dad gave me a business card. He goes, there you go. I was director of marketing and I was making $15 an hour. Yeah. So, quickly, just being the nature of who I am, quickly I started picking up on doing other things. The office needed to be revamped. We did a smallware section. All of a sudden, I was doing other things besides the marketing.
Yeah.
And our growth has come from referrals. Our growth has come from word of mouth and, working with people like you in the trades and that sort of thing, people that have worked together.
Yeah.
So that's where our growth came from for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's amazing. And when you talk about, we talk about so many things that you guys do, but one of the things that I've seen and been privy to, very grateful because, uninstalling things is tough once you've already installed them. But talk about what makes Avondale so unique. I know you guys do design,
yes.
And that's a huge part of really setting up a successful kitchen, but also your experience, I'm sure, comes with that.
It does. For me, that's the part I love. I love the design part. Okay. I love going to site. I love going to, meet with the customers and going through what their space looks like now, what they want it to look like, what they want it to do. That's the stuff I love. But then I've got a great team that puts it all together. So, make it happen is sort of our little motto. I was going to get that tattooed on Randy's arm, but that is what we do. I like going to the site and doing all the planning and the design and the discussion because the customers are excited. Clients are happy and excited to do this. And I love being part of that. And then, then we go from there. I'll bring Randy to site. He'll do a site visit. Then we, let them know where they need to go.
And Randy's position is lead installer, just for the viewers?
Oh, sorry. Yes, he's my operations manager.
Okay.
So he's been with me 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he's been instrumental to Avondale and part of the way that we go to market. We are problem solvers. And he can solve a lot of problems. So yes, we're definitely, we're a good team that way. Everybody kind of pulls their weight and does what they need to do to make it happen.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you think about it, I remember before being in industry, especially working for yourself, I don't think I got that much experience when I was just a plumber. But definitely once I got into business, it was okay, now restaurants are calling me, and oh my God, there's a lot of plumbing in restaurants. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you go into these nice, beautiful restaurants and you go into the back and there's nothing. How do you make that work? How do you set the proper expectations? Yeah. How do you deal with the clients?
Well, it's a little bit about, there's a lot of planning to it.
Yeah.
And, there's the front of the house and the back of the house.
Totally.
And they're two separate spaces, but they really need to work together.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're even things like dishwashers, having a dishwasher in the front of the house versus just in the back of the house.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. If you have the seats and you have all the you have the necessary need for that, it's important.
Yeah.
Because if not, everybody's falling all over each other.
Totally.
So, that's kind of the stuff that we have conversations with people about.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? What are you trying to achieve? How many seats do you have? What is your experience? What is your atmosphere? That sort of thing.
And I'm sure when it comes to it, it's would I rather have an extra, table that's going to profit 4 seats and 4 dinners, turn over 4 times, or have all this extra spin around space for the people in the back.
Right. And that's also an interesting challenge too, because kitchens are usually small.
Lunchrooms or bathrooms.
Yeah. Kitchens are usually small and, I have this much space, make it fit. That happens a lot. And I get it because that table of 4 is worth way more than, that extra 4 or 5 feet in the back.
Yeah.
But that's where our expertise comes in.
Yeah.
With knowing the new stuff that's coming out, or even small sinks, how to make things fit. Totally. And still be applicable to code and still do all the things it needs to do, but how we can make it fit properly. Yeah. And that's where our experience comes in.
I think it's so unique once you get into some of these spaces, especially for different types of food and different types of dining.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? For anybody thinking out there, you go to a taco joint, you know what I mean? If you're downtown Hamilton, you go to the Mule, throw a little plug in there. But, you're looking at they've got certain types of trays, but then you go to fine dining and they've got, 6 different types of cutlery, 15 different sizes of plates. And how does I mean, where do you guys fit in when it comes to that process? Or is it really like you need that information prior, you ask the right questions and kind of get that?
Yeah, you're asking questions.
Yeah.
You're finding out what they're doing. The client now though is doing a lot of research online.
Okay.
So they're sending links, or they're saying I like this design, or that definitely does happen.
Yeah.
But it is about finding out what they're looking to achieve. And I have lots of clients that send me links that say, can you get something like that for me? Absolutely I can.
Yeah.
So and we can pretty much meet all of those different requirements depending on what they're doing. But yeah, there's literally thousands and thousands of different tabletops and different options for tabletops. You name it, it's out there.
It's crazy to think, right? I don't know if I know my head's spinning and thinking every little tray and trinket and thing that you get at a restaurant. It's like, oh my gosh, it has to be multiplied. It has to be available. It has to be consistent.
Yeah.
It has to be dishwasher friendly and stuff like that. When it comes into over the years, you're talking about the change and the development of the business for people and other entrepreneurs thinking about it. Like, obviously, COVID's making a switch. Whether things go online, make a switch. When you start making a transition in your business, now that you're the face of the business, but also I remember we talked a little bit about, I don't want to be the face of the business and I'm behind the scenes. And even though I'm the head of marketing at $15 an hour when you started for your dad, how do you find making those quick decisions and transitions throughout your business career?
I enjoy it. I enjoy the dynamic, and we have a lean team. So we're quick to answer. We're quick to deal with problems, and there's a lot of benefit to having a lean team. Mm-hmm. All of my people care. Like every single one of us actually does give a shit. Yeah. we do care about what's happening. And for me, there's some days I'll go home and I'm like, hey, I'm done making a decision. I can't do it. But for the most part, like what I do every day is it's just part of who I am. That's part of building the business and part of just me.
Yeah. Well, and I stopped you before, but we were talking about just knowing everybody within the industry and with in our industry, just for everybody listening, when we talk about going to a site and it's sometimes you're working with the client so pre-construction.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Like it's a shell.
Yeah. So once you bring those trades in and it's like, oh, okay, everybody kind of knows each other and works together. It's such I don't know if you want to call it a dance or a ballet, but it's so beautiful once things go in smoothly. Mm-hmm. And it can be so bad, like a car accident that you don't want to look at when it's not going there. But you had a really nice thing you're talking about your dad saying before.
Yeah. So, Hamilton, I grew up in Hamilton. My dad grew up in Hamilton. We're just part of Hamilton, or Hamilton's part of us. And my dad used to always say, Hamilton is Hamilton. And it can mean 100 different things, but what he meant was that it's unique and it's not Toronto. It's not, it's not all these bigger cities. Hamilton is Hamilton. It means it's unique. It's something that, Hamiltonians know. We have the arts, we have the food, we have, it's grown. It's no longer just a steel town.
Yeah.
And, the change that has happened to Hamilton and what we do as a business owner and just even doing community events and stuff like that. That's all stuff that makes Hamilton unique.
Totally.
Yeah.
And, getting into the community stuff, Kristy is one of many, many advocates in the city that does community work, but some of the stuff you do is just unprecedented. It's amazing. Talk a little bit about how you got involved with the Eatery and Exchange.
Oh boy. That was a shell. Yeah, that was a shell when we first looked at that project. And that was a unique one because they came to me and said, I can't put a hood in, but I want to do a menu. I'm like, okay, well, and now that is no problem. But at the time, that was a few years ago now.
Yeah. And
at the time it was a challenge. Okay, what are we going to do to make sure that they can do what they need without a hood? Because that was foreign at the time.
Yeah.
But, we looked at options and now they're completely operating. They've got a combi oven with a self-ventilating hood. Everything it's all ventless. And they can use everything and do everything they need to do and more.
And tell us a little bit about what they do there.
So we've gotten when we first started that project, like I said, it was a shell, and I didn't know Sue at the time, and Sue has been. She's such a wonderful person. She's the executive director there, and she's a wonderful person. And at the time, I was like, okay, well, we're going to outfit your kitchen.
Yeah.
But over the years, like we've gotten involved in their silent auctions, and basically what they're doing is helping an area or a neighborhood in Hamilton that is in desperate need of that. Mm-hmm. They need not just so much, not a handout, but it's support. It's a community place. It's a place that you can go and you can buy your BLT with buttons. And there's not that in and of itself. Like I've gone there and bought, I have meetings there or whatever, and I'll do $20 in buttons because it's a way of helping people without the handout.
Totally.
It's a community place where people can come and be and eat and be together.
Yeah.
And I love how they do their dining.
I love it.
Yeah. You can just sit wherever and you're sitting and you're talking to whoever's there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. And Kristy's was very fortunate to get us involved in some of their community stuff and just giving back, but also like seeing and taking the time to go the extra mile for people that maybe are less fortunate, don't have that opportunity. Yeah. Within your industry that you're the best at, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's something like being the solution. I remember when I was young, like not having that. I wasn't great at anything. I was good at stuff, but I wasn't great at anything. And then once I had that skill set of being a plumber and being able to do something that someone else couldn't, it was better. It was just that worth. It was that value that you have.
Absolutely.
It's not you can't, I can. It's that, I have a gift and a skill set that's, unique to what I have, and then utilizing it for so much good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Working with small, big restaurants, what do you prefer? What is your ideal client? I mean, budget aside, maybe.
Yeah, I'm really lucky in the fact that we have a varied customer base. Like we work with, a local pizza place that has one location. I work with small hospitality groups. I work with, and I work with institutions, universities, hospitals. Yeah. We're really lucky in the fact that we can work with a bunch of different types of clients, but each of them is unique.
Yeah.
And so you're talking to an owner operator one day, and the next day you're talking to the purchaser. You're talking to the food services director one day. Chef next day. You're talking to so many different people, and they all have their own needs.
Totally.
So it's basically like putting a bit of a puzzle together. How can we solve your problem, and and make it fit, make it work, and that's really what our ultimate end goal is.
Yeah.
Solve your problem.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So a little bit about your journey with the family business. So you got involved as the CMO, if you want to call it the glorified. How'd you move into the role that you have today? And then all of a sudden, how'd you get out of your shell a little bit and start marketing yourself?
So for the first 5 years, the business grew steadily. We weren't making leaps and bounds, but it was steady. And so that brought us to 2015. Finally my dad agreed that I was no longer the director of marketing.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have a title either. But we revamped the office. I was taking more of a customer focused role, doing more of the site visits, stuff like that. My dad was starting to step away from that. Unfortunately, he got sick in 2016 and he passed. So thank you. And so we forged ahead. I met with the staff that week and said, okay, we're carrying on. And so that's what we did. And from there, we grew a little bit pre-COVID. We had some 2 or 3 extra guys in the back, and so that was a good phase for us too. But it's just. And then I was stepping in more into the business operations side, growing the business. And I hired some salespeople as opposed to just me.
So, you mean help?
Yeah.
What's that?
I hired Candace to answer the phones.
Yeah.
And now she basically runs the office.
Yeah.
I hired Monique to do quotes, and she handles all the sales.
Amazing.
So I've been lucky in the fact that I've hired people and they've grown with me.
Yeah.
And I've allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
I don't pigeonhole anybody. If you can keep going with what you're doing and grow with it, then that's what I like. I like to see that.
And creating that safe space for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's huge. We talk so much about entrepreneurship and what that means and being involved in the city. Was there any doubt going through that? A little bit of doubt, a little bit of concern there?
Well, pre-COVID, no. Like we enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about my staff is, like I said, people have just grown into the roles that they're in. And, but COVID has been challenging.
For sure.
It's a hospitality industry.
Yeah.
The hospitality industry as a whole has suffered.
Totally.
So, we are right there with them. And I think, aware of the constraints and aware of the challenges and the stress and everything that they're dealing with, because we're dealing with it too.
Yeah.
And, so it's a very real thing when it comes to business, but it's, you're looking at the flip side of it, and we're aware of the challenges. We're aware of the budget issues, we're aware of all those things. So we definitely want to make sure that, we're going to the table with something to offer.
Totally.
Not just, okay, here, I'll sell you a fridge because I happen to have it. What do you need?
Yeah.
What are you looking for?
What
are you looking for? What are you trying to do? What problem do you have? I'll solve it.
And so, we've heard a lot of stuff about COVID and some of the impacts it makes. And, I think from an outsider's perspective, I remember it happens all the time to us. Oh, well, you were essential. You should be good. And I hate bringing it up like that, but I think about it. It's like, well, why don't you ask how we're doing?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask? Because I'll tell you the whole thing. But we look at it, there's a lot of positives that have come from these opportunities. Mm-hmm. Were there any that really stuck out to you in terms of wow, we learned a lot, or wow, we really dug in, or our team is able to kind of, wow, we're stronger than we thought we were? Yeah.
Right before COVID, we were probably up by 3 or 4 employees. So there was a lot of I shouldn't say extra, there was a lot of people there. Yep. That, and for reasons not related to COVID, some of them moved on.
Yeah.
And then, right when it was starting, when, I had a few people ask me to lay them off. But my main goal during COVID was to keep my people employed. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And so as a result of that, we're, like I said, very lean, but I got a team that will make sure that at the end of the day, what's done is what has to happen will happen. Totally. And that is the positive that came out of COVID. It's a struggle, yes, but at the end of the day, they do know that, I was there for them, they're there for me.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. It's big, right? And creating that space. I always say we're pretty new in business here, and what are you scared of now? Can't be scared of much now.
No, we've done it.
Yeah. I think unless there's a world war, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So. Yeah. What does the future hold for Avondale? Where's the direction that you're going? Where do you think the industry's going? I know that they've talked about these pop-up kitchens. Mm-hmm. And we worked with you on a school program kitchen, mm-hmm. which I thought was awesome. Mm-hmm. That was an incredible project that just, again, I think getting into some of these industries you just don't think of.
Right?
Yeah. You think of everybody just goes and sits down and eats at a wedding and judges the food. How the hell do you prepare 350 plates of dinner at the same time to make sure everybody's, steak is medium rare or whatever the hell they want? There's so many facets of it. I mean, in plumbing we say, how do you get water to the top of the CN tower, and then how do you get shit down? That's kind of our model, just to keep people thinking.
Right.
But in your industry, what's changing? What's next?
Everything all the time.
Yeah.
We
different ways of cooking.
Yeah.
Pressure cookers, air fryers.
You name it. We do a lot of product knowledge sessions with our vendors.
Wow. Okay.
It's important that we are up to date, because things are happening constantly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of innovation in the industry. When I started, a combi oven was completely unheard of.
Okay.
And that now is pretty much most kitchens will have one of some sort.
Yeah.
They may not have the one that's completely automatic, but of some sort, they have something of a combi.
Wow.
And it can be something for as simple as a bar that just wants to do something after the kitchen closes, which is simple and easy and just push buttons. Or it can be something like 350 people at a wedding and, medium rare, and all the things. So, and it can do all of that. So, a lot of what we're doing, like we have them probably every month, where we're doing product knowledge sessions with our vendors. I go to all the shows. I go down to Chicago. I go down to Orlando. We do the RC show. I took the team there this year for the Restaurants Canada show in Toronto.
Oh, wow.
We closed for the day and we took a road trip. So it's important because everything's changing all the time.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to one this year and it was mind blowing. Not only just, you talk about, we don't want to buy that stuff. Or it's like, well, for us, it's tools,
yeah.
Right? We get new tools. It's going to speed up a process.
Absolutely.
Labor's expensive, right? So
yeah.
the investment is there, and understanding the new technology is nuts.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I mean, I come home all the time with new stuff from my fridge. You can get a pizza from Italy and Canada. It's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the codes are changing and environment, the environment's changing. So people are building restaurants in places that you would never think of a restaurant being
totally
in. Old houses.
Okay.
How does that happen? How do you make what was an old house into an awesome restaurant? And that's, we were lucky and we've been able to do a couple of those. So, but you have to think outside the box. It's no longer, okay, I've got 10 feet of cooking space. I'm going to put such and such in. Now you have to start thinking a little bit differently.
Well, and I think a lot of people, it's about education over selling, right?
Absolutely.
We talk to a lot of people on the show and they say very similar things. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So bring in the expert, whether it's listening to this podcast and you're going to get knowledge that's going to put you ahead, because rather than going through that challenge, you can learn from somebody else's mistakes. But also when you talk about a space or a build out, like, how many people do you know that don't use a contractor? I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it takes them 3 times as long and twice the budget. And, they just didn't want to pay that 15% for knowledge and speed and time.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting. Talk a little bit about, we know how busy you are. We know day to day you got a bunch of different hats on. We asked the question, how do you balance work and life? But you don't have to say you balance it. I don't balance shit. But how do you balance your work and lifestyle?
Well, there's no balance.
I love it.
But
perfect.
Like my horses. My horses are my sanity. My time away. Because when you're with them, you really can't be focusing on anything else.
And tell everybody a little bit about that. I know the whole story. I've been to the farm. But tell us a little bit about your animals.
So I live on the family farm. We have a big boarding facility that we've built there over the last 3 years. And so I've got 15 horses on property, and most of them are boarders. And I show, I have great friends that board with me. And, so we're all, that's where my sanity is. I spend my mornings mucking stalls and and doing all those things. But at the end of the day, it's a way of kind of turning off.
Yeah.
Because they don't care. They don't care about holidays. They don't care about, what you've done the day before. They don't care if you're stressed out about, any situation going right.
Yeah.
For them, they're living in the moment, and that is literally that's it for them. So for us as riders, as horse people, it's just it becomes part of who you are. So, it's nice to be able to turn off and have that safe space.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what about the dogs? we gotta talk about the dogs.
Wieners. So Winnie and Rue. Winnie's 4 and Rue is 1, and they come to work with me. So if anybody's coming to Avondale, they'll probably bark at you.
There you go.
But they are super friendly and just loving life, and they love their farm life, and they come to work.
The cutest dogs you've ever seen. So I go down there just to see them.
I was going to get them little shirts with a little Avondale on them.
I love it. So we always end the podcast with this. Just what advice would you give to your younger self? Whether that's real young or young and entrepreneur or early in business? Any tidbits?
And it's actually advice that I've actually followed through on.
Amazing.
Create relationships. And whether that be with customers, vendors, third-party people, the talent that's out there, because there's a lot of talent out there. Totally. Avondale isn't successful out because we're insulated. We're successful because we have a good network of people. With yourself, like we work with you and your company and your crews, and that makes our job easier. Like I have wonderful people that I reach out to for their expertise. Totally. And I think that's an important part to being a business owner is not just doing what you do and being insulated in that, but having the relationships out there in the network and the community, and however that looks in whatever industry you're in. That's
awesome. Well, I mean, it's amazing to see your journey. Congratulations on all the success.
Thank you.
It's awesome to see. It's hard on a podcast to get the full story, but what Kristy and her team does for the city and different organizations would really some of these chefs that are amazing and do what they do best, they don't know where to start when it comes to the back end of stuff. Kristy really gives them that peace of mind and that stability. So next time you're eating a taco or a burger, or having a salad somewhere, I guarantee Kristy has touched that food. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And, before we finish, guys, we always ask ourselves this question: why not me? Why not now? You can put that in a lot of different perspectives. If you have an opportunity to go down to Avondale, all her tags, all her posts, everything is going to be on our Instagram feed. You'll have all the links to Kristy and her team's bios. Thank you so much for tuning in.